What is up, Facebook land? Welcome to a special Tuesday episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler. Before I introduce my special guest, Garth Estadt, he's an amazing guy. We've just recently physically met, but we know each other through mutual friends, and just an amazing guy. You're going to love this episode. I always dedicate a show. I'm dedicating the show to my brother today, and it's everybody's heard me talk about my brother and what happened and why I do the things I do today. But this coming week, well, in 3 days will be the date that he died, and today would have been the last picture we ever had taken together, and I'll show it to you. I got it given to me as a gift today from Christy. If anybody read the book, Christy is kind of like my sister. My mom and my Aunt Darlene, my mom's best friend, they each had 2 kids. We're both single parents. We all lived together growing up. And this picture, if anybody can see that, we were down in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, on vacation as a family. My mom, my stepdad, and Andy and I. And in that picture, I was not very happy because I didn't want to dress up in Civil War era clothing and take a picture. And nor did I think that it was going to be the last photo ever taken of me and my brother and my family. But today I honor my brother because in 3 days I'll be mourning his loss. It'll be 30 years on the 12th. And but it was a reminder that you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. And little did I know that day when I was so pissed off at my stepdad for making me dress up in Civil War era clothing while I'm on vacation trying to pick up chicks. And I didn't think that was going to be the last time I ever got to stand next to my brother. So this one's for Andy. The podcast, where can you hear it? Anywhere that podcasts are heard. I'm on 12 different platforms. The normal list of podcast platforms: iTunes, Anchor, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, you name it. I'm promoting the book now every show because someone told me I suck at promoting. So I'm going to promote the book, A Brother's Love, a memoir that is now 13 years old, but still going strong. I'm in the process of writing the sequel to that now, since I've been out with the broken leg. From work, it's given me a lot of time to sit and write. I don't have a whole lot of other things going on right now, so it's a blessing and a curse that I got hurt, but I'm able to sit down and write the second half of my journey. So I'm really excited about that. All right, my man Garth. Garth is many things. Garth is an American patriot. He is a graduate of the United States Military Academy, aka West Point, where he played football. He left West Point and one of the few people that spent very little time, if any, in regular Army and went straight into Special Forces, where he was an officer and a captain.
Well, that's a little bit when I didn't spend too much time in the regular Army because I had some really odd assignments. My first 4.5 years in the military were in some really odd stuff. I only spent about 6 months of that first 4.5 years in a regular Army unit. So I still had to wait like everybody else till they were a first lieutenant promotable. But I just had some really odd assignments, just super cool stuff.
Right. Well, the cool thing about Garth is that, on top of West Point, on top of playing football there, on top of going Special Forces, which many people have gone Special Forces and served in the military, did all things, but he's one of a handful, 15 or so, who have graduated West Point, lettered on the football team, and then went Special Forces, which is a pretty cool distinction for anyone, let alone someone to have all 3 of those things. I'd be happy with one. Garth is he's a TV guy on some level. He's rescues kids that have been missing or exploited. He's done crazy different ops like that. He's a State Farm insurance agent, in case anybody wants to Northeast.
Well, no, I'm not really supposed to say that. I'm an insurance agent. So.
He's an insurance agent with Farm State.
Oh, no, I'm just an insurance agent. Yeah, because
and he's just done a whole lot of different things. He's a husband. He's a father of 2 amazing kids who are doing great things in athletics and academics. And so I'm just very happy to introduce my man, Garth. How are you, buddy?
Right on, brother. Thank you. I wanted to also thank you for my book. I finished it. It was absolutely super cool. I told you, and I said, for me, you got to have the fuel. You know, to do something and be really inspired, you got to have the fuel. And that's the fuel. You know,
Thank you, man. I appreciate you reading it. And, you know, for everybody, Jason Griggs, who's my business partner, introduced me to Garth. And Jason knows Garth through a mutual friend of theirs up in the Scranton area. And Jason just came back raving about this guy, Garth, that he got to hang with at the Maxwell Awards when I couldn't go. And the time that they had together, and they gave each other call signs. And
Jason's my brother. And yep, I love him. It's awesome. And me and you know. Yep. And
that's the best part about it is we didn't have to have 6 months of getting to know each other. It was a breakfast. And,
here's what my commander. Well, we were interacting other ways, but here's what my commander said. I went through 3 commanders in a year in Greece, which is very odd, but it was a special weapons assembling, disassembling special weapons, 8-inch nuclear rounds. So if you made one mistake, you were on the first train smoking. So my 3rd commander there, Major Quintrell, told me this. And he goes, every time you go to a new unit, like when you're meeting new people, he goes, it's called dog sniffing. Yeah. But I never ever forget him telling me, and that was me and you, and we sat there and just, and so that's what it's just funny. That's what you reminded me of, is when you said that, Major Quintrell, doing the dog sniffing.
Well, on that note, I'm going to start the show by asking the one question that I ask every single guest. And this question is, who was Garth Estadt?
Okay, here we go. Now it's a little complicated. It's not. It's not. I'm not complicated at all. What you see is what you get. I'm a laws of physics, 32 feet per second square. The world is what it is. 2 plus 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. I grew up in a real small town called Fallsington, outside Philly. It's right next to Levittown, Marsville. And about 8th grade, I said, you know what? My dad was a blue-collar worker. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to West Point and be a Green Beret. From 8th grade on, I just said, that's what I'm going to do. It was almost like, my name is Elmer J. Fudd. I own a mansion and a yacht. Hey, just go ask Garth what he's freaking doing. He'll tell you, yeah, he's going to West Point. He's going to be a Green Beret. Yeah. I had no idea how I was going to do that, though. And so when I went through school, I never studied or anything. I never took a report card home in 12 years. And so I didn't have good grades. I had really good SATs, and I was a good football player. I was being recruited by Army and all the Ivy Leagues I was recruited by, except for Harvard and Yale. And when the football coach called me, he said, hey, Garth, he goes, we're really interested in playing football here, but he goes, your grade point is you're never going to get into West Point. You're going to have to go to prep school. And I said, no way. I said, I'm a good football player. I don't need this prep school thing. I didn't have any guidance. Nobody told me, hey, Garth, you need to be going to prep school. You're not going to get the nomination. So when December rolled around my senior year, obviously I didn't get the nomination yet. I have like a 2.2 in high school. I never took a book home. I just never, I never studied. And so I went back to the football coach. I said, yeah, I'll take that prep school slot. He goes, hey, I gave that away. That was September, brother. You missed that train. So then what I did is I went to a civilian prep school called Perkiomen, and they gave me a football scholarship. I played football for them. They gave me a job there, and I wrestled also, and I also played baseball. It's like Bugs Bunny right field, Bugs Bunny left field. I did all 3 sports, and I'm very, very grateful to them to give me that opportunity. It was also a boarding school. So every night I learned to study. I was so far behind the other kids that were there, they would put me in the back of the room, and the teacher had to work with me because I just never studied. It wasn't because I had really high SATs, but I just never studied. I had no concept, any of the math stuff or any of that. And I'm grateful to, Mr. Engel was my math teacher, then, Mr. Bishko was my physics teacher. These were great, great men. And so I got almost straight A's at Perkiomen. I knew this was my last chance. So I got into West Point. It's crazy. It's awesome.
It's tough to think about that, isn't it? How hard
Hey, greatest country in the world. What I said and I think about is it's the greatest country in the entire world. But you gotta, you gotta set your goals. And I didn't work. That was my fault. But I'm saying the opportunities I was presented afterwards were just phenomenal. So I went to West Point, played football there. My first year, I studied real hard. After I understood the system, I never studied for the next 3 years. So my sophomore year, I understood. I was like, hey, if the minimum wasn't good enough, they wouldn't set a minimum. Now, nobody else do that. That's not right. God doesn't give you talents so you can, you only go half speed, stuff like that. I said, well, all I got to do is bide my time here. I got through that gate. In Special Forces, we call them gates. There's 3 gates in selection, and you got to make it through these gates. No matter who you are, you got to get through gate 1, gate 2, and gate 3, selection, and you got to go to the Q course. And so I was like, okay, I'm through the gate at West Point. All I got to do is pass. I don't give a crap. And it's probably not the right attitude. It's not the right attitude. You know that. But that's what I did. And my sophomore year, I had a couple people die in my family, so let me go home for a semester. And so now it was a December grad. At West Point, I ended up, I walked 185 punishment tours. I walked more tours than anybody in my class. I was on conduct probation for 6 months, which meant that, well, when you talk about walking punishment tours, the area was like 100 by 100 meters. You'd show up on Friday with your rifle, they inspect you. And you walk for 2 hours on Friday, you get a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom and get a drink, and you walk 5 hours on Saturday. And you have a 5-minute break in between, to go to the bathroom to get a drink, and then you got to sit at your desk that night for 3 hours, and that's a room tour, so it counts for 8 hours a weekend. And I walked 185 hours. Because I had 3 major boards. I know that gets into being bad monkey later on, but so then by then I had 3 major boards, and so they put me on conduct probation for 6 months, which meant that I could go to chow, I could go to class, I could sign out of the company for an hour, every night to go left, and then on Sundays I could sign out and go to church on Sunday for an hour. But I did the 6 months. They let me off 1 week early, and I knew it. My TAC knew it too. He was a phenomenal man. His name was Captain Daniels. And so they put me on again for another 3 months till the day I graduated. So that was, but I'll tell you the one thing that got me used to, though, which was really funny. My classmates used to come by, hang in there, Garth, and they'd be signing out on Fridays and stuff like that. Just awesome teammates, man. Very cool. Yeah. And it's great. It's great to be an American. But so anyways, what that kind of did is that broke my give a crap meter. Later on, I'm like, dude, I've been on double secret conduct probation. I walked 185 punishment tours. Whatever you can dish out, I can take it. So, in every class, most of the infantry is always ranked, which means like the last guy in the class gets infantry. So I said, okay, because you have to be in the regular army for around 4 years or so till your first lieutenant promotable before you can even try out for special forces. So I said, okay, I'll go to a light infantry unit, I'll bide my time there, do my 4 years, and then I'll be able to go to SF. Well, we were the first class in the history of West Point that you were not ranked infantry. I got ranked artillery. I was so upset. At branch night, they let even off the guys on restriction down to go drink down Eisenhower Hall. I sat in my room with, with the lights out, with some, if I would have had the music, something like that. And I just said, I can't believe I'm going to be, that's not what I wanted to do. And it ended up just being one of the best opportunities I could have possibly even asked for. And so then, I went out, I did the basic course, out at Fort Sill. While I was there, I was down Dallas with one of my buddies from West Point, and this girl was walking by, this good-looking brunette with blue eyes. I grabbed her arm and said, hey, how would you like to meet the bigger, better deal? Yes, that's exactly what I freaking said. And because that's what we always ran with my crew. There were 5 of us at West Point that were best, that we went everywhere together. And so then I started dating her, and that was the girl I married. She was a captain of the basketball team at SMU. She's a 5'4" point guard, all-state high school, all-state state champion, 300-meter hurdles, all-state softball player, all-state basketball player, and she's a high school All-American. Just phenomenal athlete. So Fort Sill ended up, and also at Fort Sill, I took the D-Lab, which is like a fake language test to test your aptitude for learning a foreign language, and I scored real high on it. Of course, she didn't have to study. So they offered me 6 different languages. And so that's, German, Dutch, Turkish, Greek, Italian, and French. So I took Greek for a year. I was going to be out in California. And because of the timing of it, it allowed me to stay at Fort Sill for a whole year. So I got to go see Christy down in Dallas while she was going to SMU. So it's the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. And you want me to keep on rolling, or do you want to ask me something? Or, okay.
Who is Garth moment, man?
All right, my brother. What you see is what you get, and no surprises there. So, I was there for a year. I went to, I didn't tell you some of the stuff about like West Point. I had the opportunity to do some super cool stuff. We could be here for hours telling you. Well, one of the summers I got to go to airborne school, and you can go to air assault school, jungle school, northern warfare school, airborne school. My junior year, I got to go to airborne school. Super cool experience. Broke my right foot though, second jump. All you had to do is you got to get through 5 jumps. So I'm like, no PT, nothing, on jump week. All you got to do is hobble down the green ramp. So I taped it up, freaking hobbled down the green ramp. And, I didn't think that was any, never, and then I had 30 days leave afterwards. And I said, there's no freaking way I'm going to put a cast on my leg during the freaking summer. I got 30 days. I'm going to the beach. So I never got my foot fixed. And sure enough, a couple years later, the basic course, I went to Ranger School, first jump Ranger School there, 2 weeks or 10 days, whatever it is, till the first jump. And I freaking broke my foot in the exact same spot again. That's the way the ball rolls, man. And so I asked them, I said, don't put a cast on me because I got to drive my truck back, and it's a clutch. This is freaking 1989. And I said, you can't drive, with the cast on for 1,500 miles. So I never went to the doctors, for it. So broke my foot, same place twice, man. Second jump and first jump.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to
go ahead.
You real quick. When you were assessing yourself after you got out of, like, when you led this whole thing off with you didn't study in high school, you found out how not to study at West Point. When was the switch when you finally figured out that your preparation and the amount of effort that you put into something produced the result you were looking for?
Well, here's the thing. You got to remember too, everybody's built different. And for me, once I realized I got to get through a certain gate, I worked really hard at prep school. I was so far behind everybody. So I worked really hard at prep school. But once I got through the gate, I was like, okay, I can do this here. And that's why once I understood the system after my first year too, and I had some incredible, during basic training, I had or Beast Barracks, it's called, my first roommate was Mike Henry. The guy was a freaking sergeant in the Army. He ended up being number 5 in our class. He was phenomenal, to help me out. And another guy we had another prepster. We had 2 other prepsters in our Beast Barracks. One is Greg Laux. He was ended up being our brigade commander. He's just a phenomenal man. And just love him to death. I pray for him every single day. I'm going to see him on Friday up at the Army football golf tournament. Me and my boy will see him. He owns a commercial construction company up there by West Point. Spend part of the day with him and then go to the Army football thing. Yeah, so all tier 1. But no, when you were asking me, let's go back. And the same thing with Special Forces. Once I could apply for that as a first lieutenant promotable, I actually started applying myself again. And so I super trained hard for it. And, I smoked it. I was so thankful. Not saying when I say smoked it, like, it wasn't hard at all. It was a smoker. I put out every freaking day. I way pre-trained. I got that ready. I got that ready. And I got that ready. The 3 things. And, but those are 2 of the big things in my life where I did prepare for that. then I get through the gate, and that's when I start pulling the throttle off. You know what I'm saying? Right or wrong, I'm just saying that's how I'm built. You know, until I find the next challenge. You know, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to train up for this and, you know, prepare myself that way. So that's.
The reason I asked that question is because, I mean, obviously we had some conversation before this that I had a little bit of understanding of you. For me, I have similar, I'm built similarly in that growing up, I only did as much as what was required for me to get the best score that I could get. And if that was minimal effort, then minimal effort got me the best score. And I hit a point in my life where I always thought, even though I didn't stay 100% committed to something, all in, everything I got, I always gave enough at what I thought was my very best to achieve whatever was really important to me. Like I always thought I gave enough at SWAT school to be the best at SWAT, or to be MP5 instructor school to be the top gun. And like I always thought I gave 110% of everything I had until I actually did that. Until I actually had to give 110% of myself. I always thought I did, but there was that moment, and I don't know if everybody ends up with that moment or not, but I had that moment where I was like, holy shit, I really didn't give 110% to anything until now.
I agree with you. Here's the funny thing in life that I sit and I think about, especially the advice that you're going to give kids and stuff. I coached football for 10 years till my boy graduated. They allowed me to bump up through. And I would write stuff all over the walls for all the kids and stuff like that, from great men that taught me stuff, great women that taught me stuff. I've just had phenomenal teachers. I could name you every one of my teachers from elementary school on up. Mrs. Rosenberg, kindergarten, you know, Mrs. Grant, Mrs. Wiley, Mrs. Roebuck, you know, I mean, just phenomenal people that gave out of their lives, you know, for me. And I do appreciate that. But it's funny when you sit there, I tell the kids, I said, you don't want to be sitting here looking back, you know, here's, you know, 20 years from now and saying, man, I wish I had tried that. You know, I wish I had done that. There's three things whenever I'm doing something strategically and I go, okay, risk. I don't want to look back and say, I wish I had taken more risks. Risk, reflect. I don't want to look back and say, you know what? I wish I had spent more time with my family and friends. And the third thing is legacy. And I don't mean the statue to yourself in the town square. I'm talking about you did something for someone else. And that's what I said. So when I sit and I'm doing something strategically, I go, okay, does it fit a risk, reflect, and legacy? You know, but those are the three things that I look at, you know.
That's important. I do. When I started my company, I got you public speaking. I always told people I got them. And when I say I got you, it means something. And that's why I think it. So
sure.
That was live a life of selfless service worthy of remembrance. And someone told me once that you die twice in your lifetime. Once when you take your last breath and you're put in the ground, and the second time when your name is spoken for the last time. And I don't ever want, I know I'm going to die. I know I'm going to put me in the ground. I get that. But I don't ever want somebody to not say my name for as long as I can possibly allow for that to happen. I want to continually have my name spoken, like George Washington, like Abe Lincoln, like everybody in history that was so monumentally important. That's where I want to, my goal in life is to be that. And the only way I can accomplish that is if I constantly do good things for other people in such a way that's so important that they will never forget that. And that's kind of how I just built my entire life around that. It sounds very similar to your risk, reflect, and legacy.
Yeah, very cool, man. Yeah, nobody's going to look back. Just say you want to look back and at 55 or whatever age and say, hey, at certain times in your life also, this is what I teach the kids, you have certain windows that you have to be doing specific things. You know, kids would come to me and say, hey, Coach Garth, you know, I said, how come you're not playing ball this year? Oh, I want to go earn some money. I want to buy a car. I said, you're going to work for the rest of your life. And, I'm dating this girl. I want to spend some time. I said, you're going to date people for, you know, and you're going to end up being married. You can do that at any time. You can date girls in high school. You can date them in college. You can date them after college. You're going to work your whole entire life. But I said, there's only one time in high school you can play high school sports. That's high school. And you cannot miss these windows in your life. Now, I sit there and I see some of my my nephews. I was just down the beach, with my cousins and, over for my birthday and stuff like that. And they're awesome, just great young men. And Joy Eileen's awesome too. And they're like, Uncle Garth, at certain times. And I'm like, hey man, at certain times in your life, before you have kids and before you get married, those are opportunities where you need to be trying stuff out. Hey, I'm going to take a risk for this. And I don't mean to gamble, hey, lucky seven. I'm talking about, hey, I'm going to set a goal, definable and attainable, and then I'm going to move out and draw fire. If I don't make it, but once you have wife and kids, you have duties and responsibilities. Your teammates got to come first, man. This is not about, hey, I want to be a professional baseball player. No, you got to take care of your teammates first,
That's a good transition. So let's talk about your time in SF and
okay, all right, yeah, this is cool.
Of your teammates and the people that when we met for breakfast last week, the passion in which you talked about the people that are, I told you I have my 5, the people that I can count on at any given time to come without asking any questions, to dig a 6-foot hole, deep hole, and put a tarp that might be 210 pounds in that hole and bury it and never have to ask a question. And you have your teammates from when you were in SF and West Point that are so impactful still in your life today. What was it like when you were in SF? Let's talk about the unit you were in with.
I was, okay. There's 3 special forces groups. Okay, we're start though. We had about 1,500 guys in our West Point class. We graduated in 981. You have about a 35% attrition. There used to be there. Now it's about 10. It's a different place. It is what it is. And every class has about maybe 10 to 15 guys that go to special forces. So I sat and I thought about it because I looked at a lot of my fellow teammates at West Point and my classmates. I'm like, these are some hard men here. These are some tough guys. How come other people don't go to SF? And I think one of the reasons why is with the regular Army too, and some people like chocolate, some like vanilla, but if it's a peacetime regular Army, there's not as much to do, and it's hard to get some real A-type guys that'll stay in, want to stay in and then give it a shot. They've already turned off the machine, And also, if you take that chance in the military and you don't make it through SF, you got to go back to your old branch. That's a career killer for people who want to stay in as a career. I'm just saying, well, why did you go to SF? You obviously don't want to be an artilleryman, an infantry officer, or whatever, So SF, then you go to, you were asking me about my teammates. I'm going to explain a little bit more about SF. You have a 3-week selection course. I think we had about 350 guys, 400 guys go through it. It's a 3-week course. We graduated about 120, I think it was, and we had 107 that were selected, which meant that you went on to a 6-month operator course and you worked in real small groups together. I was telling you some of the interesting men that were in my small group. Mike Frank, a guy who never spent one day in the conventional Army. He's your group out there won't appreciate it as much, but if you had military guys to understand, you went right out of basic to the Ranger Battalion, then he went to OCS, came out at the Ranger Battalion, then went SF. Just a phenomenal man. I had the Prince of Saudi Arabia, Sultan Al Faisal, went through the course with me in my small group for 6 months. Here's a guy who could have Broad's Phantom and feed him grapes for the rest of his life. And he also went through the Buds course too, and ended up taking over their naval special operations. Just a special, awesome guy. This is just a very unique crew. I went through with Wayne, who was, they only picked 2 Canadians a year. He and I went through SEER school, and I could tell you stories about SEER school, but we'll be here for hours.
I went through that.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, some of the men, Mr. Landrum and Mr. Cartwright, were 2 of the guys they pulled out, instructors that used to be in the RTL, the Research Training Lab, which is the prison camp. But because they were so powerful, they pulled them out and made them, which is crappy because that's where the rubber hits the road. But I watched them get inside a guy's head, and this is a staff sergeant from the Ranger Battalion, a tough freaking guy, and shaking in his freaking boots in a classroom environment when you're not cold, wet, hungry, tired. Those are the 3, things. Cold, wet, hungry, tired, man, are just exponential, makes everything that much harder. Any one of them were a combination of the 3. And so then you go to your unit. There's 5 groups. First group, Far East. Third group, African Caribbean. Fifth group, Middle East. Seventh group, Central South America. 10th group, Europe. I went to third group, did all my ops in the Caribbean. I could tell you, I also went to language school. I speak French. I speak Greek, French, and Haitian Creole. Moi parle bon Creole parce que moi habité dans Haiti pour 11 mois. I speak it because I lived there 11 months. And also, moi apprendre l'école. I learned in school. Chaque jour parle Creole. Every day parle. I speak it. And so our first stop down in Haiti was the invasion, Operation Restore Democracy. I tested out early out of the French class. Told you I can take any test there is, and because I didn't want to miss the invasion because I knew they already assigned me to third group, but I had to go to language school. So I tested out early, and I met the team. They had already deployed to Guantanamo prior to the invasion, and then Colin Powell, Jimmy Carter, and Sam Nunn signed with General Cedras. So they didn't invade. That was they allowed us in there instead of us coming in there forcefully. And I got to do some super cool stuff there. I commanded a Mare Ops team. ODA 342 was my first A team I commanded. It was a Mare Ops team. Just phenomenal men. I mean, now here's where I'm living my dream. I was like, oh my God, dude, this is great. And it was awesome. I have young guys come, man, I want to go to SF. I wish I could just go now. And I'm like, dude, you got to have skill sets, man. Every single thing you do in your life is crawl, walk, run. For you to be able to do this takes, years and years of experience, and so that was super cool. I'm just going to give you the abridged version. I don't even know where we are time wise.
We're good, buddy. We're good.
And so we would travel all over the country with teams that were having problems, because we were that was our AO. And they brought us back, sent us all to language school for Creole, went back, deployed again. And we were getting ready to take over the palace security for President Aristide, which is the most high-profile job in the country at the time, because we spoke fluent Haitian Creole. And just an incredible experience. Had 195, it was about 190 Haitian soldiers, 20 Haitian officers, 2 captains, and a major. And we would run the security at the palace and at Aristide's residence. I had about 35 Bangladeshis, maybe a little bit more than that worked for me over there also. Super cool assignment, 6 months. Every year in my 4 years in special operations, I was deployed a minimum of 6 and sometimes up to 9, on a calendar year. And then my third op in Haiti, they let me pick anywhere. Well, when I got back after my second op, the colonel allowed me to pick any team I wanted to command. So I picked a Helo team, and we got to handpick some guys for that, all senior guys, just incredible men. That's where I got my my nickname. Brother Griff calls me. Everybody in SF has a nickname. It's almost like I told you. It's almost like Animal House. Hey, your nickname is Flounder. You remember that guy? And Brother Griff, we were helping them out on something, third op up north on a disturbance. And Brother Griff goes to me, he goes, "Sir, you are a bad monkey, man." So that's, how I got my nickname, Bad Monkey. It's on the back of, my jump helmet. Crazy Dave Larson got me, my XO, who was just a phenomenal man. And, these are lifelong relationships that you're going to have with these men. Trustworthy. I could tell you, hostage situations we did. You and I will talk offline on some of the stuff. Just, it takes a long time. Just interesting stuff. So by then, I got recruited to go to Delta, third op in Haiti. General Scott came down to see us. He was the commanding general of Army Special Operations. And I had known him from debriefing him a couple times because, I ran the palace and we were like the Creole speaking team. And so he flew into the Honduran camp to come out and look at our AO and stuff. We were probably about a half hour away, something like that, from the Hondo camp, 20, 30 minutes. So we drive in I bring 2 vehicles. I've only got like 8 guys on my team. I had 2 interpreters assigned to our team, even though we were a Creole speaking team. Hey, there are 2 extra bodies. One of the guys was a Lance Corporal Angus, spoke French, young guy, super cool. He was a Marine. We ruined him, man. I took, just because they're so straight discipline, stuff like that. When he goes back to the Marine Corps, he was ruined. But and then we also had a guy from North Africa, and his name was Rambo. I'm not kidding you. But he was and he spoke French, but he was a phenomenal mechanic. And so he was just a huge asset. So anyways, I show up, me and 3 of my other boys with 2 trucks to get the CG of Army Special Operations, General Scott. It's a 3-star. Flies into the only secure LZ in our sector, the Honduran camp. In our sector, my last op in Haiti, I think that we had about 200,000 people we're in charge of. Myself, my 8 guys on my team, my 2 interpreters. I had 195 Haitian cops that worked for me. And I had 128 Hondurans, which had a 4-man SF contingent with them, a team leader, team sergeant, medic, and commo guy, to keep an eye on the foreign contingents and also to have secure commo with all the American SF units. And that's how we ran the sector. So I would always have guys, running patrols out there, 40, 50 little villages, all kinds of stuff. And then anyways, and 2 guys I had to keep back at our base. So we go out and get the CG. We had this lieutenant colonel who was not in our command, who was, whatever. He starts yelling at me, how come you don't have more security here? This is the frickin' CG. I said, hey, sir, I got frickin' 8 guys on the team. I got 2 guys back the hooch, 2 guys doing patrols, and I got me and my other 3 guys here. And General Scott goes to me, he goes, shut up and get in the back of the vehicle. He goes, I'm going to ride up front with Captain E-Stat. So he rides up front with me. We're, we have to slow down some certain places. And the windows were down. These were not armored Humvees or anything like that. That didn't really come out till Desert Storm. You know what I mean? Actually, after Desert Storm, the second one, when they started armoring up all the stuff. So, I pull out my pistol and I stick it, between my legs. And General Scott goes, what you doing? I said, hey, sir, we got 2 rough areas. Traffic slows down. I said, if you get hurt, I'm in big trouble. So he goes, all right, Captain. I know, So we get to my hooch. I show him all around. He shoots my book, How to Write the Perfect Resume. My wife was already ready to pull her ripcord on and, to let her cut away her bad shoot and then go somewhere else. So I said, hey, son, are you getting ready to get out of the military? And he said, I said, sir, I've been deployed so much. I'm ready to move on and do something else. I already commanded 2 18s and done a bunch of deployments. And he goes, how would you like to go to Delta? I said, I don't know anything about it. He goes, we got something for you. So he sent down Colonel No, who was the former Delta commander, but he was in charge of OSF at the time, to see me the next day. Flew in the Honda camp, flew outside, and he sat me down and said, hey, son, we got something for you. When you get back, don't get out. This is what we want, give it a shot. I said, all right. I said, what do I need to do? Practice land nav or whatever? He goes, no. He goes, we can teach a monkey how to frickin' read a compass. He goes, we need men who can think on their feet. So I said, okay. So I left that deployment. I went to Helo school then, because you got to remember, I got the Helo team right before our deployment. So me and one of my guys on the team, Woody, went to Helo school. Super cool experience. One of my roommates, Marine Recon, goes there. Navy SEALs, Air Force, Pararescue, NSF, and I think Delta they send their guys there. I don't know if they do a separate Helo school. First week's at Bragg, you learn how to pack your own chute. And, you pay attention. Here's one thing I learned about the military too. The more and more dangerous it got, the less BS there was. There's no push-ups. There's no, hey, you need to be doing this right. Your punishment, get down, mister, none of that crap. This is dead serious stuff. You're packing your own chute. Guess what, brother? You better pay attention, Garth. This is not your just, if the minimum wasn't good enough anymore. You're falling 1,000 feet for every 6 seconds, You better, the minimum's got to be better than the minimum. So that was super cool. My roommate was his name's Ricky. I'm not going to say his last name because he went on to SEAL Team 6, and I don't know if he's still there. Awesome guy. He was a SEAL Team 2 guy. Just a super cool school. Went out, did that. Came back, did the largest joint combined exercise called Fleet X on the East Coast at the time. All the East Coast SEALs were there. We got to work with the Gurkhas, 22nd SCS, did a British jump weight exchange. Just cool stuff. And when I first got back, the general's aide asked me, hey, we got selection coming up. They only have it twice a year in March. And I said, I'm not ready. I still want to stay with the Helo team because I had some other cool stuff I was doing. So I went in the fall. There was 102 of us. It's a 3-week selection course at Camp Dawson, West Virginia, which was an old World War II POW camp. we were down to the last week. We were down to about 20 guys. I think about a little over 20 guys. And I had 2 days left. Missed a point by there were two Woodard. I'm not going to, because this is one of their hitches that they've been using for years for glass. So, they asked me to come back again. And my boy that was October 96. My boy was born January 97. I just said, that's it, man, I'm done. So I got out, interviewed a bunch of different places. And I'm like, Precious, after being an SF guy, you're commanding an A team, you're overseas, speaking foreign languages, you run a sector, over 100,000 people, just super cool stuff. You can run you're going to manage this warehouse. You're going to have, whatever. I'm like, Precious, you're going to find me hanging from the banister, man. This is not for me. So my uncle sat me down and said, hey, how would you like to do this? And so that's how I became an insurance agent. You get to pretty much work on and then subsequently from that, I got asked to do when reality TV was just starting off. Survivor was so big, with Mark Burnett. Well, we were sitting home watching TV. It's like 2001. And it says during Survivor, hey, are you one of these special operations guys that could do a special mission? We're looking for 24 special operators across the country. And that's how I got on the show Combat Missions, and which opened up so many other super cool opportunities. You can still watch it on YouTube, but it aired for 15 weeks on USA Network. We had like maybe 2.1 million viewers. I could talk for 10,000.
Good, brother. We have 19 minutes left on the show, so okay. We got plenty of time.
So, anyways, and I told you how I got in. I said, okay, my wife says, you could do that, husband. So I sent in the application. I sent a couple pictures in. They asked me to talk. They said, we want to see you talk. And I didn't say anything in. So I set up a video camera. They contacted me next day, set up the video camera. And I told them about a night Helo op. And so then I FedExed it out to them. They called me when it got back and said, you're on the show. And it was just a super cool experience. We went out to the desert in California, 24 special operations guys, SEALs, only 2 SF guys, me and one other SF guy. His name's Frank Monaster. This is a funny story. There were only 2 Green Berets. Civilians call us Green Berets, but in the Army, it's Special Forces. Frank and I were the only 2 Green Berets on the show. It was a huge Navy SEAL mafia. They were going to vote everybody off. This was like Survivor type thing. You went on 4 teams of 6. And but anyways, with Frank was a really, really smart guy, and at West Point, and he went on afterwards to grad school at Harvard. Just gotten out of SF. He was getting ready to start a job, and you got to remember, this is 2001. We'd sit and shoot the crap at night when they weren't filming. Corona was one of our sponsors. Oakley had a bunch, but when they weren't filming, we'd sit and shoot the crap. Hey, what's going on? They had some bar for us to go to, and out in the desert, they built this little fort, called Camp Windstorm. And I said, well, Frank, what are you going to do? He goes, well, and I didn't tell you this story. This is an odd story. I have 1,000 other ones to tell you, but Frank goes, I'm with this small internet legal startup thing. I said, I said, okay, Frank, this is internet. Yeah, you're going to be doing legal stuff on the internet. Are you crazy? Well, you know what that company was?
LegalZoom.
He's the president of LegalZoom now.
Wow.
We're still friends to this day. He's an incredible man. But I just remember sitting there talking about that. Just what a funny thing. But there I met our team was a super odd team. We had 2 recon guys, 2 Navy SEALs, myself, and a CIA guy. One of the teams is like an older group of guys. One of the teams was like a SWAT team, mostly SWAT, and the other team was mostly like a Navy SEAL team. And you just knew our first couple of days they wouldn't let us talk to anybody. They said, if you talk to anybody, you're off the frickin' show. We were allowed to go work out, hang out by the pool. We'd go to a central thing to get our meals, bring them back to our room. They were doing photo ops, stuff like that, sitting in with psychiatrists because they wanted to put in with certain people that'd be fighting with it. That's what they wanted. They wanted a food fight, which we didn't really do that. We didn't do that on our team. And I don't think the other teams really did that either. That was not the thing. We ended up fighting with other teams, but not, within the team. And that's how I met my friend Scott Helvenston, Navy SEAL, youngest Navy SEAL in the history of the United States of America. Dropped out of high school at 17, made it through BUD/S. Was a SEAL for 12 years, broke his back and both his legs he was a Helo instructor at the time. He'd been a SEAL instructor, been in a couple of the different SEAL teams. And so he was medically discharged out. He was just a physical, phenomenal specimen. And but we just hit it off. We got our bunk together. We already knew we liked each other. And that was it. From that on, we spoke every single day on the phone up until he was killed 31 March 2004 in Fallujah. And I've been fortunate enough. I've been a guest on Good Morning America, Geraldo Rivera, Greta Van Susteren, bunch of local shows in California for fundraisers for Scotty's family, fundraisers or down in Florida doing stuff. I've recovered abducted kids. I'm 7 for 7. Doing that in Costa Rica, Mexico, Texas, Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, California, even. And so I've had the opportunity to do some super, super cool stuff. I'm just giving you the abridged version.
Well, Scott was one of the ones that was killed with the Blackwater.
That's correct. Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. He was trying to earn enough money to open his own gym. So, he went to go work for Blackwater. And the last time I talked to him, he said, "Hey, I'm getting ready in infill." He was emailing me from Kuwait. And that's the last I heard from him. We walked in and hey man. Yep.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. I was in the Air Marshals at the time, and they were coming at us, all triple canopy, all the different contract companies were SAIC. They were all coming after the guys in the Air Marshals because of our training. We were trained by Delta guys and Navy SEALs. So they were coming after us hard. And my wife, I remember the money was sick. You did 11 months in country, you're getting like 250, 300 grand. Tax free. And I told my wife, I said, "What do you think?" She goes, "If you want to have a wife when you get back, you're not going." And so that ended that real quick. But yeah, it was one of those. I know a lot of guys that jumped ship from the Air Marshals and go work contract work over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was a different world back then.
I have a friend prior to when I got out. This is a really odd thing. When I was out processing, some lieutenant colonel approached me, and I still have the list. I kept all my freaking paperwork from everything. Counseling. I have a counseling statement from when I was a plebe. From my, it was really funny. Her name's Robin Fontes. When she was a junior, a cow. They're called cows at West Point. She's a 2-star general now. I have my counseling statements. I kept all that stuff, all that paperwork, and it's funny. And, but some lieutenant colonel approached me when I was getting out. He said, "Hey son, if you find that you can't fit in out there and don't like it," he goes, "here's a list of a bunch of companies that'll pay a lot of money, for your skill sets." And, I remember, and I actually called one of them and talked to him about it after I'd interviewed at a bunch of different places. There was just nothing I was really interested in. I mean, that's a hard transition, from the military, but especially if you're SF, you're used to being really close group of guys, men. These are your freaking teammates, man. Told you these dads have three standing orders at the E-Stat house, man. Give no crap, take no crap. That means you don't bust anybody's balls, but you don't allow anybody to bust your balls. And if I tell them, but that rule's suspended while you're at West Point or in the regular Army, and then reinstated when you get out, when you get in, special operations or, out in the world. Rule number 2, you always put your teammates first, carry the heaviest load, and don't ever tell anybody that you're doing it. But that's rule number 2. Rule number 3 is never quit. And what that really means is it's for a lot of different stuff, is if you can deny yourself physically, you can do anything. You can. Sit and think about it, I mean, that's your first most basic need. Hey, I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm hungry, I'm tired. If you can not deny yourself those 3 things, you can do anything,
Amen to that. I love those 3. I have something similar in our house, but mine's a little bit more simpler. you have my name. Remember that. And I just leave it at that. My kids know what that means, and
well, that just means in the E-Stat house, oh, bad monkey, man. Yeah, you're in big trouble, or you've done something you haven't been caught yet. So don't say that. Ceasefire, right?
Well, brother, here's the deal, man. Your stories could probably last 30 campfires. We could probably do this for a month and a month of Sundays. And the one thing that I can tell you that stood out to me when we first met was there's a warmth about you that, like, when you're in your presence, you feel this warmth of almost like a cloak of protection.
I'm a teammate.
And that's where I was going with that, is that when you told me that we're teammates, that made sense then. That cloak of, I felt like I was protected, even though we were just having breakfast. I felt that. And that's a very important quality to have. And I think if anybody can take anything from the conversation we just had, your 3 rules for your family, the fact that your entire life has been about service, that you've lived a life. People always tell me I've done a lot of things in my life, and I always tell them I probably have the longest resume, but now that I met you, I don't think mine's even nearly as long as yours. But my goal is I don't ever want to leave anything in this world untouched. I want to make sure that if there's a place to go, a thing to accomplish, or an experience to have, I want to make sure that I get that. And I believe a dog just entered your room.
He did. It's awesome.
or your house is haunted. One of the two.
It did. Its name's Thor.
Thor, welcome to the show, buddy. For me, I think that a life well lived, a life experienced, where you're not afraid to take calculated risks, where you're not afraid to put yourself out there, where you're not afraid to challenge yourself, and you're not afraid to figure out the system and maybe make it work to your advantage. There's nothing wrong with strategically making sure that you have all the balls on your side, as many as you can possibly collect when you're trying to accomplish something. So I think the show was amazing. It was a short notice thing for everybody that tuned in tonight. I'm so thankful for that, because normally I don't do a show on Tuesday, but my show last night, I had an audio issue, so I never actually got to publish that show because it was just, the audio was just bad. So I'm very thankful that you were able to step up and take the request and say, I'm free tonight. And I appreciate that.
Right on, brother. Hey, teammates, man.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Hang tight. We're going to talk offline. I'm going to close out the show real quick. Everybody, thank you for watching this episode of the 2 Dates and a Dash podcast. I am your host, Matt Cubbler. Thank you again to my man, Special Forces guru, West Point graduate, West Point football, just an amazing all-around human being, Garth Estadt. Thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody, go out, do something good today. And for God's sakes, be kind to one another.
Thanks, brother.